The most iconic cocktails of today hail from all across the globe, each with their own unique taste, vibe, and story that took them from an idea to the glass. But no drink is more evocative of its place of origin and rise to become the #1 cocktail in the world today than the iconic aromatic sipper from Italy that's a staple of every bartender's repertoire. This is the cocktail history of the Negroni. The story of the Negroni begins in a place where art, food, drink, and lifestyle have always mixed and mingled: Italy. But before our story begins in Stavale, it's important to know exactly what is in a true Negroni.
Hi, I'm Stacey Swenson, and I'm a bar and beverage director in New York City.
What ingredients make up a classic Negroni?
The recipe for Negroni calls for gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth, so it's a perfect combination of bitter, sweet, and strong.
According to the International Bartenders Association, in order to be considered a Negroni, that bitter profile needs to come from Campari, the iconic, vibrant red Italian aperitif.
Aperitif comes from the word aperire, which means to open. It's meant to open your appetite up. It means to drink before a meal, but now we've sort of extended that tradition to be during a meal and even after a meal with digestivo.
So the palate opener to the Negroni's cocktail history is the creation of this key ingredient. Bring on another expert.
My name is Olivia Sirio. I am the Italian Icons Portfolio Ambassador for Campari America.
Sounds like you'll know the answer to this question. Who created Campari?
Gaspare Campari was an herbalist. He is extremely passionate about alchemy, and he had a whole line of things that he was making: tinctures, bitters, and then the Campari recipe, the red bitter that we know today, was developed in 1860.
Around 1860, he came up with this secret recipe named after himself, and it was this bitter red aperitif. Then he moved to Milan and he opened up Cafe Campari.
And he lived and worked in the Galleria right across from the Milano Duomo. So he opened up Cafe Campari there and really began to build his brand.
Gaspare creates his signature red bitter, and people from all around the region gather at Cafe Campari to share ideas, discuss, and drink. And as the popularity of the spirit grows, so do the cocktails that use it.
You can't really talk about the history of the Negroni without talking about the Americano first. And even before that, the Milano Torino, so we'll start there.
So Italy unified in 1861, a year after Campari as a brand sort of came out. And this cocktail is a gesture of unification of these two regions. So the Milano Torino is just equal parts Campari from Milan and sweet vermouth from Torino, its neighbor in Piemonte.
And then from there, because the Milano Torino, it was a bit too bracingly bitter for the American palate. So then they would start to add a little bit of sparkling water to it to sort of lengthen and soften it up a bit. And so that cocktail became the Americano. Equal parts Campari, sweet vermouth, topped with sparkling water.
But how did the Negroni cocktail come about?
So in Florence, at a place called Cafe Cassoni, there was a gentleman who was a regular, and he was named Count Negroni. He was this aristocrat, and he was quite a character. There's some stories about him that he traveled the whole world.
Well, if you must know, I'm a typical rare spirit.
And he was a cowboy in Wyoming at one point. He was this really interesting character that everyone would notice when he came into the bar.
This Count sounds pretty cool. What's his name again?
Count Camillo Luigi Manfredo Maria Negroni.
That is quite a name.
Can you imagine trying to tell that to a customer service representative on the phone?
Well, now that's all I can think about.
Count Camillo Negroni is very well traveled. He is a man of means, and so he's able to move around the world freely, but also he's an adventurer. So when he returned to his home, he loved to visit his favorite bartender, Fosco Scarselli at Cafe Cassoni.
This bartender was kind of known as the therapist, and he also had this style of hospitality that it was designed for the guests. So he would find out their likes and their dislikes, and he was sort of like this classic mixologist. Count Negroni asked his bartender if he could have an Americano, but he wanted something a bit more robusto, and he asked for it with gin. So he was subbing the club soda for gin instead. So it became, I'll have an Americano, but the Negroni way.
Count Negroni and Fosco Scarselli had created a classic new cocktail. But the journey of the Negroni from the cafes of Italy to its rise in popularity today means it had to catch on in a big way.
Particularly in Milan, it is a very bustling metropolis and a lot of affluent people there, so naturally a lot of art and fashion and culture was taking place in Milan, and Campari being so synonymous with that city, a lot of people wanted to work with Campari.
By this point, Gaspare Campari's son, Davide Campari, had taken over the brand and began to steer it to a massive increase in popularity.
Davide did an incredible job of partnering with artists, particularly futurist artists like Fortunato Di Pero, who is the person who designed the Campari and soda bottle. I think that Campari was really ahead of its time in partnering with artists in the late 1800s into the mid-1900s as the art scene is really taking off in that area.
Davide Campari grew the brand with innovative advertising that truly was art, and it was everywhere. Campari had an art column in the most popular Italian newspaper, and they were the first brand to advertise on public transportation in Italy.
If you see this name, this word that you've never heard of, you're going to be curious about it.
Even now, if your grandparents have a bar in their basement or something, they have these really gorgeous Campari advertisements, and it sort of brought Campari as a household name.
With a legendary history and fervent fans, the popularity of this drink has placed it atop the cocktail mountain.
Right now, the #1 cocktail in the world is the Negroni. It's not just in my personal biased opinion, but also ranked by Drinks International.
The beauty of the Negroni is it's not just a cocktail, it's a cocktail category now. So you use the building blocks, the blueprint of the classic Negroni, the sweet, bitter, strong, and you can build upon that. There's no bad ideas when it comes to Negroni variations, in my opinion.
There is a Negroni for everyone.
There's some celebrity who shakes his Negronis instead of stirs them, and that becomes popular. That's great. There's a time and a place for any sort of variation on the Negroni.
The popularity and spread of Campari and the Negroni go hand in hand. So how can we be like the adventurous Count and make a classic Negroni ourselves?
Buongiorno. Today I'm gonna show you how to make a classic Negroni. So let's start with some ice, 1 ounce of Campari, then 1 ounce of gin, and 1 ounce of vermouth. Gonna mix with the ice gently. And we're gonna pour over a big rock of ice. I wanna squeeze a little bit the orange on the glass. And we're gonna finish with a slice of orange. It's ready. Salute.
A perfectly balanced blend of refreshingly bitter with sweet. The cocktail history of the Negroni took it from the cafes of Italy to every bar around the world. Salute!